on the phone or joining after. I'll introduce the 4 guest speakers today, and then each of you can maybe spend just a few minutes talking about your topic. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A. So anyone who has a question can maybe in the chat box, if you can just kind of say, I have a question, or maybe just put a question mark. Put a question mark in the chat box, and then I'll know that you have a question, and I'll tell you to go ahead and ask your question. Okay? So welcome everybody today. We have 4 of our club members who are volunteering their time today to talk to us about some concerns in the property and investment management side of things. We have Angelo Pucci from Sutton Group. We have Kelli Preston from DeVry Smith Frank, Vithu Ramachandran from Ramachandran Law, and Sheila Gadan from Centum MetroCap Wealth Solutions. So thank you so much for providing us with your insights today. I'll just pick at random, and I'll just put the first one who's in the photo on the flyer will be Angelo. So no, actually, Angelo, if you wanted to go ahead.
Sorry, Doreen. I'm actually starting.
Sorry?
And then it'll be.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's you first, and then?
It's Angelo.
Angelo.
And then Vithu, and then Kelli.
Keith, Vithu, and Kelli. Okay, I didn't realize it was an order. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, Sheila.
So good morning, everyone. This is just a little briefing of what's going on out there, and a lot of people had so many questions in regards to the mortgage deferral program. I've been talking to a couple of banks and as well as Genworth just to get some ideas of what their perspective, what they've been listening to, and what type of deals and what type of questions they've been directed with. So just wanted to go through some of the pros and cons of deferring mortgage. Just to give a heads up, not a lot of people know that pretty much majority of the mortgage already had that option available. Deferring of mortgage. Some are called rainy day options, some are called skip a payment, but it's there. Not a lot of people exercise it, but it is there. Now with the situation with the COVID, they just decided to stretch it from 4 to 6 months. Now, the pro part of it is great that the government's trying to help everyone who's struggling. If this is your last resort, you know that you cannot make a payment to the mortgage, take that deferral, no problem. But if that's not your last resort, we all know that mortgage or our house is one of the biggest investments we have. So anything else that you would default would be okay, but when you default a mortgage, your life is done. It's totally done. So this option, the deferral program, it's great, like I said, if you are at the last resource. Now, if it's not, don't use it. Because all it's doing is it's taking the mortgage payment, and you have to remember you're still paying your life insurance, and you're still paying your taxes. It's only the principal and interest. So they're taking that and tagging it back onto the mortgage. So when they tag it back onto the mortgage, you're actually paying interest on top of interest. So in the long run, you're paying much more. Now, the only advice I will leave you with is if you do take this option, again, they're offering 4 to 6 months. As soon as this whole thing blows over, if you do taxes, you have refunds coming in, any money you have, lump it back into the mortgage. Use it as a prepayment option. They have that. So just ask your mortgage company, each mortgage company is different, what's the maximum amount that you can actually input back? So that will offset, that interest, the doubling up of the interest. So make use of that. Now, as for qualifying for the deferral program, each bank is different, and not everybody will qualify. They are rejecting people. So you'll have to actually go through each bank to figure out who will accept and who will not. Some of them don't like the idea when the amortization is increasing more than what they've originally given to you at. So if it exceeds that amortization, they're not comfortable. We were just having this discussion a minute ago. There's a lot of even private funders are pulling out at the last minute. Same thing with the banks. The banks are being really cautious. They want to help you and they don't want you to lose the house. It's costing them. It'll cost them more if they have to sell your house and so on as well. But at the end of the day, look at your benefit, right? So just don't use this deferral program if you don't need it. But if you're at that strap and you know you're going to miss that mortgage payment, please, whatever you miss, don't miss this. I was having a little chat with Genworth day before yesterday, and they were saying even if they approve the whole situation, a bank can turn it down. So it's all up to each individual banks. The banks make their own decision. So whoever is providing the mortgage to you, they make that decision whether you're going to get approved for the deferral program. Besides that, so again, keep in mind, whatever we're going through, it's a short term. We will get through it. And once everything is back up and running, you can think, if you're already in that worst case scenario and you're already in that situation where you have to miss the payment and you've already done it, it's okay. Like I said, once this thing blows over, try and dump it back. It can be 1 year from now. It could be 3 years from now, but dump the money back into the mortgage just to offset that double up interest. Basically, that would be it from my side. The only other thing is, I know there was a lot of question about, is this going to be bad for my credit? As long as you don't default on your mortgage, it's fine. It's not hitting your bureau. It's not going to be reported anywhere. It's not derogatory. So as long as you keep it in a clean standing, anything and everything, it doesn't matter whether it's credit cards, whether it's mortgage payments, anything you're not able to make it, just make sure you call them, touch base with them. If you leave it, that's when you get yourself into a bigger mess. So there's always different ways of getting help. If you go into, I will put up Genworth's website address and as well as CMHC. If you go in there are assistance program, homeowners assistance program that they're actually offering. So take a look at those things. Help you, you know what I mean? Sometimes even stretching out an amortization, there's different routes. So take a look at all those options before you just jump and start deferring mortgage payments and stuff. But like I said, that is an option that's available. So if you guys need it, it's there. So just wanted to give you that pros and cons. So Angelo, your side of the take.
Angelo, you're on mute.
We need you back, Angelo.
I will come back right, and there I am. You guys hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time to join us this morning. Obviously very, very proud to be part of this great organization, and I'd like to thank my partners here, Kelli, Sheila, Vithu, thank you very much. Suresh for putting it all together, and of course Doreen for collaborating this whole thing. From a perspective of the realty side, I'm a numbers guy, so I do have some graphs, but I'll come up to the graphs in a few seconds. I want to talk more about what buyers, sellers can expect from the real estate market as it is right now. As of right now in Toronto, 69%, we're down 69% of sales from where we were. It's a number that obviously not a lot of agents are working right now, but at the same point in time is that we're trying to adapt to new ways to do business. And I think this is really going to be the key for a lot of us as far as what can we expect going forward. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be in financial situations. Like, I mean, we've, as numbers rose in real estate, the mortgages got bigger. I mean, from a lender's perspective, and Sheila, you can jump in here. From a lender's perspective, the numbers are so cut, so fine with regards to affordability. Exceptions were made based on earnings. So there's a lot of people that 32% of GDS and 40% gross debt ratio were numbers that I believe were stretched to the max anyways. And now with property values and people not working, yes, there's some sort of relief fund for some, a lot of people. Is it going to be enough? And the answer is no, it's not. Whether it be 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be, okay? The values will continue to drop in the first quarter. Property values will continue to drop. There's no question about it that the number of people that are out there right now, for fear of going out, everybody wants to be touchy-feely. They want to see what they're buying. So right now, the numbers will drop. Not going to come back. They will come back. But it's going to take, from our own market research, in first quarter 2021. So this could be a whole year of ups and downs, fluctuations. How do we adapt to it? And when we're going to come back. As a realtor, we're scared. We're scared about our health because look at everybody else. So we've set out certain protocols right now as far as we won't just show you a property. It's not going to happen. Okay. If you're just starting to consider the idea of moving, well, that's fine. But there's going to be certain protocols that we have to follow in order for us to go to that next level of showing the property, from masks and gloves. And it's a question of, we may be the most cleanest people out there. The question of, someone goes into a house, they want to be able to touch doorknobs and light switches and turn them on, turn this off. So the question that comes down to, every home has to be sanitized almost immediately after every showing. The people that are there, what are we doing? Are we jeopardizing their health with regards to it? Right? Because I mean, if they're going to come home, they have to Lysol everything down. They have strangers come inside their home. So the importance of presentation, from videos to presentation, is going to play such a huge role. And we're doing everything we can to obviously do our open house virtual videos on our homes so people can actually see it. So we're not going to show you a home if you're not the decision maker. There's no way. It's not going to happen. So the old days of seeing 15 homes, that will not happen. Okay. If your finance is not in order, and again, a lot of things can change. If your finance is not in order, let's deal with it after. Let's put a condition in there. I want to be able to see that your finances are in complete order, because otherwise we're wasting a lot of our time. But these are the new boundaries. We have to abide by them. We're going to follow them strictly. I have no problem going out there to show properties. I mean, and it's going to be such that, you know, you have to maintain that social distancing. I think that that's going to be, again, the key with regards to everything. But there's going to be a lot of hardships for a lot of people. And I think there's going to be opportunities for some people who want to take advantage of the situations. Toronto will probably be hit the hardest. In Durham region, I think we're down. I think, Suresh, you got some of those graphs for me now? Suresh, you got the graph?
Sorry?
You got that graph for me?
I got it.
Thank you. So for the people that are, you know, in a position to invest, be a great time to look at properties. We're not trying to take advantage of people that are going to be in dire need, but I think that as values drop, people may be forced that they won't be able to keep this home. So if they can refinance, okay, which is where Sheila would make commitments for us, say, hey, let's try to do a refinance package and so forth, then it's going to have a question of, is the bank going to take it over? And what we're suggesting to everybody else within our communities and so forth, this is where, if you have to move, do it before a bank takes over, because once they take over, okay, the cost associated with power sales and foreclosures, well, more primarily in the province of Ontario, we're talking power sale, we're not talking foreclosure. That's primarily in the US and some provinces in Canada, but in the province of Ontario, we're operating a power sale. The cost is great. So a lot of people will probably opt to sell, cash out. There may be a deficiency balance, or they may be able to at least get what they paid for it, and then move forward, as opposed to going power sale. This is going to be such a tight market with regards to what we have to do to help people out. And I know it's power sale, people are losing their homes, but alternatively, it could go power sale, and that's not a good thing either. So I'm going to put it over to our colleagues in the mortgage business, and obviously our lawyers to assist. We had a conversation with Kelli yesterday with regards to how can we help these people coming inside your offices to say, folks, you know what, maybe it's time to, you know, you may be forced to sell before it goes power sale. I've done, in 2008, I was one of the key agents for all the major banks that did power sales. A lot of the banks unloaded a lot of their mortgages that were B and C's, and they sold them secondary lenders at 48 cents on the dollar. This could happen again, right? The banks will want to protect their interest. And talk about Genworth, talk about the CMHCs. There's a ton of money. They're going to try and protect the banks. But at the same point in time, there's going to be people in the situation that they're going to be forced to sell. So we have to be, ready, willing, and assist them any way we can, and have them some sort of, I guess, a few dollars in their pockets. So now, having said that, what's going to increase is the rental market. So whoever is an investor right now and can afford to buy rental properties, the rental properties are going to be the way to go. So, right now, South Ajax is an example, North Pickering, you can already see the number of showings on rental properties. Some people have already taken that they have to sell because there's no other way out of it. So, I'll show you some quick graphs, and I'll show you, so I should just fill up the first one there. Can you blow it up? Suresh, where are you? Chat. Okay. Suresh, can you?
Which one do you want me to show you?
Oh, let's go to the first one. We'll just talk very briefly about the first one. That one there, yeah. Can you blow it up or no? No? Okay.
No, that's it.
That's all you can do? Okay. What I wanted to show you is actually, I'm just going and pull it up right now here. Hang on. Sorry, guys. I thought. Okay. So in Ajax, as an example, just give an example. The average price at the end of March was $733,000 average pricing. Mid-April, we are down $654. In Clarington, $578 is the current price from a high of $609.
Wow.
In Markham, $1,025,000 down to $919,000. This is just in 2 weeks, folks. 2 weeks. Oshawa, $566 to $529. And dropping further now to April 15, $502. Pickering, $715 to $673. Whitby, $724 to mid-month of $662,000. So you can see the numbers are dropping. This is where the banks are seeing right now. Their instructions to their lenders is they be very conservative. Okay, so when they go inside their homes, and yes, we are still selling homes, appraisers have been instructed by the banks to make sure those numbers are conservative. And if they're not conservative, this is why banks are pulling out, because when that appraisal comes in, the bank will actually readjust those numbers again to fall into those 3, 4, and 5% differentials to protect themselves. Especially somebody that we have insurable, we have insured. There's just a lot of factors that have to fall into play right now. So as an agent going into a property right now, looking at homes, I'm looking at it, what is this property going to be appraised at value-wise? I have to look at it from a different perspective. Selling price is one thing. We're still seeing multiple offers out there. But from a banker's perspective, they're going to look at it from a totally different venue and saying, you overpaid for this, but make sure you have a sizable deposit in there in order that you can qualify and carry this property. So qualification is going to be one thing. Carrying cost is going to be the other. But if the price drops again, is the bank going to be protected? And that's going to be their key right now. So we will see, probably another slight drop, I think, come May. All depends as far as what happens in May as far as reopening some of the business and so forth. Our business will grow in gradual stages. It will not grow from here to here. it will definitely go in gradual stages. Condo market will be the hardest hits. Toronto markets, as I said, the number of sales in April are down 69%, which is huge. Now, Durham region, we're still, okay, but this is the first 17 days of market. The first 17 days of April, it dropped 69%. So from an agent perspective, our business, our industry, I think we'll see a lot of clean out as far as a lot of agents that probably shouldn't be agents. I mean, this is going to be a ride, and everybody better hang on for a ride because we're going to see a ride here. But a lot of these new agents, new millennials, I love you all dearly, but this is where there's going to be a lot of work to be done. You're not going to be an order taker anymore, and to say, hey, how much are you willing to pay? You're going to be in a multiple offer. Would you go 50, 60, 80, $100,000? First of all, bankers will not succeed to that. And secondly, there's a lot more work to be done with real estate. We're going to go back to the basics as far as truly being a true representative of your business, of what you do and how you do it and why you do it, not an order taker. There's a lot of order takers out there. The order takers will be out of our business. Hopefully I've covered everything, but that just gives you an idea. So if anybody has any investors and so forth, there's going to be some opportunities out there. Not to say we're taking advantage of the situation, but if anybody does have money, line it up. For anybody else who can, it's a buy and hold period. Property values, as they're dropping, it's a buy and hold. Property values will come back up, but again, it won't be. From what we're seeing right now, it won't be completely out of this until probably the first quarter of 2021.
Thank you, Angelo. So the next speaker we have up is Vithu from Ramachandran Law. Vithu, you're up to bat. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Angelo and Sheila. So some of the topics I'm going to talk about is, expanding on the concepts of the power of sale that's going to happen. If you're in the situation of a power of sale, so I'm going to describe to you what really happens. The bank will give you notices that you're in default and you're not able to catch up on payments or make a payment arrangement with them. At this point, the bank wants to get, they're going to start a claim against you, and then they're going to start getting an order from the court saying they have the right to sell your property. They will sell your property, and if there's any balance, after paying the realtors, after paying the heightened legal costs, and now we're talking about $7,500 plus at a minimum, if on a conservative level, and then this paying out the first mortgages, any liens, if there's anything else, it does come back to you. However, if you're stuck in that situation, you need to get out of it very quickly. You will not the chances of you winning by trying to oppose the bank on a power of sale is almost nil. It's very clear they gave you monies based on certain conditions, you didn't pay, and they're recollecting. Your defense of it's COVID-19, this has happened to everyone, it's not fair, it doesn't really matter. So please, talk to Angelo or talk to your agent to make sure you get out of that situation if you can't refinance out of that situation. Some people will say, get private mortgages, but if you're already struggling to make your first mortgage payment, do you want to get into another mess at a much, much higher risk? I represent a lot of private lenders right now, and a lot of them have changed their lending criteria, even on the private side. They've reduced their loan to value amounts dramatically. The risk profile is dramatic. If you're not in the GTA, including Durham and Markham, Richmond Hill, Stouffville, they're not even considering those properties for lending purposes. So be very, very careful with that. Another thing that was interesting is with the landlords getting deferrals. One of the bigger issues that we're facing is renters. Some renters a lot of renters are going through a difficult period by getting laid off or material changes in their employment circumstances. For those individuals, they really cannot pay. And, we're asking all landlords, whether you are able to get a deferral or not, make arrangements with them to try and work out a payment plan. Rent is always due. There's no deferral on rent. There's no abatement on rent. So, if you have a tenant who's not paying, or if you're a tenant, you have an obligation to pay. I'm only talking about the residential side. Kelly will deal with the commercial side. You have an obligation to pay. So so please talk to your landlords and make a payment arrangement. Landlords, for you, if you do have a tenant who wants to make a payment arrangement with you, please consider the history of that tenant. And if they're been a really good tenant, it'll be very hard for you to get a good tenant right now. No good tenants or very little of the good tenants are going to try to move during this time. So if you're trying to be a jerk to these tenants, it's going to be very hard for you to get a really good tenant. So take that into consideration while you can. And for the really fortunate, when we do some of our tax-related advice, if you could get a payment deferral from your lender, and if you have a tenant that pays, you actually have the holy grail, because you could basically get a large amount of cash flow in. You defer your mortgage, you have interest that's going to be accruing, which is going to be due at the end of 6 months or on the end of the term, which then is going to be 100% tax write-off on your taxes, which gives you both a tax advantage plus a cash flow advantage. But that's a holy grail, and that is really in the rare circumstances. Lastly, if you are a landlord and you're trying to evict a tenant, my advice to them has been good luck at this point. A, the landlord-tenant board is closed, is not taking on applications. B, even back in February when we were there, they were giving out dates not until late May, start of June, and that was in February. Now, everything else is going to come through the pipeline. So we don't expect, even if you do start this, if we're back to normal by, let's say, July 1st, I don't think realistically you're going to get a hearing date until September, October, November, unless it's urgent where public safety is at risk. There is serious risk to neighbors.
तो भी है ना कॉन्फ्रेंस में ये है इसीलिए तो मैं ले रहा हूँ कि
Azhar, you need to be on mute. Thank you. Sorry, Vithu, go ahead.
So unless it's for urgent circumstances, you're not going to get a hearing date until November. So if you start playing hardball with these tenants, knowing what's going to happen, they don't have to pay for 6-7 months. And if you have a tenant who is already on the B side, like B quality tenant or C quality tenant, if they're judgment proof, you're going to be stuck holding the bill. So be very, very careful how you navigate the landlord tenant issues. We always say, treat them like how you would want to be treated, treat them equitably. And, for those who do have horrible tenants, you have to write it out. So, that's what I have to say about landlord tenant issues. Be very, very careful. There are landmines that are coming in, and these problems are not going to get resolved right away. And if there's more public announcements that the landlord tenant board is not going to make hearings for a dramatic amount of time, if you have a bad tenant, this is going to drag on, and you'll be on the bill for 6, 7, 8 months of mortgage without having them kicked out. So be very, very careful.
Okay, great. Is that it for you, Vithu? Do you have anything more?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you so much for your insights on that. And last but not least, we have Kelly Preston. Go ahead, Kelly.
All right, thank you. So Vithu and I are kind of the doom and gloom of the call, I think. So I'm going to give you kind of the worst case scenarios. I'm going to talk a little bit about power sale, just touch up and tie up some points. And then I'm going to talk to you about bankruptcy, consumer proposal, and what the differences of that is. So firstly, Angelo had said that foreclosures are not part of the process in Ontario. That actually isn't correct. There is a foreclosure process in Ontario. It doesn't get used very often, but the process is very different from a power sale. Power sale basically, layman's terms, is basically a foreclosure. The debtor gets nothing at the end of the day. If I have a windfall and I can sell the property for $200,000 more than it was worth, and I can put that in my pocket just as a lender, and even though I'm not owed that money, it's mine because I took a foreclosure process. Most lenders will do power sale, which means basically if there's any money left at the end of the day, after legals and real estate and everything is paid, then that would go back to the debtor. So that's the difference. And also under a power sale proceeding, if there's a deficiency under the sale of the property. I can also go after the lender. So let's say I got a judgment for $200,000 and $50,000 was owing after I sold the property. I can continue to chase that debtor for that $50,000 through other avenues. Whereas with a foreclosure, I get what I get and I move on. So those are the differences. But most of the time, we do power sale. So that's one thing. So, and just with respect to power sale proceedings, one thing that people should know when you're making decisions about, you know, what do I do? Do I sell? Do I kind of just sit and turtle and let the bank do what it may and hope for the best? One thing that is very important is when you sign up your mortgage, you sign an acknowledgement saying that you've received what's called a standard charge terms. So the standard charge terms forms a part of your agreement of your mortgage, and it's about a 30-page document. And in that document, which I joke with my clients as I'm explaining it to them when I'm signing them up for their mortgage, I say that's your bedtime reading material, because of course nobody ever reads it. But in there, it tells you that your lender has the ability and the right to collect from you all of the costs that are incurred by them in the power sale process. So every 5 cents that if I'm acting as the lawyer for the lender, I recover that and I get paid on the closing of that home. So that is also something important for people to think about, because they might know, oh, I'll have to pay commission, I'll have to do this if the bank sells, but they might not realize that they too have to pay. If they have a lawyer, they have to pay their lawyer fees, and they will have to pay, if I'm the lawyer for the lender, they have to pay my lawyer fees as well. So something to consider when you're doing your budgeting and analyzing what your next steps are going to be. The other thing to know about power sale process is, so I act for lenders and for borrowers. And when you're acting for a borrower, you can, let's say the borrower got served with a demand letter. So the first step in the process is, you know, the bank will wait a couple of months, they haven't been paid, and then they'll send a demand letter saying, okay, you have 10 days secure to the default, otherwise, you know, we're coming full guns blazing. So usually that's when I get a call from a borrower saying, hey, I got this letter. Well, if I'm lucky, that's when I get a call from a borrower. And from there, if I'm acting for the borrower, I can use that as an opportunity to try and negotiate with a lender. Now, one thing I will tell you is a lender won't negotiate at all, or at least this is my experience. And if I were acting for a lender, I would not negotiate. I will keep going with the enforcement process in the power sale proceedings until there's either a new signed commitment where I know my lender is going to get paid out, or if there's an agreement of purchase and sale that is firm. So a conditional agreement of purchase and sale, I'm still going to incur legal fees. I'm still going to keep going in the enforcement process. So it has to be a firm agreement of purchase and sale, or a firm commitment. Okay, so and then also even with a firm commitment, because you can see some bogus commitments as well. So we will analyze the commitment that comes in and see, okay, you know, with experience, you will know, okay, this is never going to happen. This lend is never going to happen. And so we will just keep going with the enforcement process, you know, until we're ultimately paid. So those are just some points on power sale to think about. Okay. So let's say, you know, you've gotten this letter and you're trying to decide what to do. And so at this point, it could be a really good idea for people to try and negotiate with their creditors. Now, sometimes that falls on deaf ears, because the creditor could say, I'm owed what I'm owed, and especially if they know that their chances of recovery are good, they probably won't back down. But we're in a new environment. You know, most of the credit cards that we have are 24.99%. So you can call the bank and say, hey, I don't want to pay 24.99% anymore. Put me into, you know, your lowest, convert my credit card into a 9.99 or whatever the lowest interest rate that you have. You'll notice that all those, I mean, lots of times you'll get letters from financial institutions saying, move all your credit over here and we'll give you zero balance for, you know, 90 days. you will notice that those letters are not coming, and that's obviously strategic for the banks. But you can try and use that, negotiate with your creditors, negotiate with hydro companies, any of your lenders, any of your creditors that you owe money to. It's worth a shot. And you can do that yourself, or if you feel, lawyers can help you with that as well. If obviously the money that you're trying to save has to be proportional to the legal fees that you will pay, but that's something that you can consider as well. Oftentimes what I will do for clients when I'm trying to help them negotiate is I will speak to the banks or whatever, the lenders, and offer to them a statutory declaration. So a statutory declaration is basically a sworn statement of an individual's assets and liabilities. And that statement, the lender will review, and they will make an assessment as to your ability to repay. So nobody wants to spend money on legal fees that they know at the end of the day they're not going to recover. So banks will analyze that statutory declaration and make a valued assessment as to, okay, I know on my best day I'm going to get X dollars if I spend Y dollars, so why don't I just do, and they can either say, I'll take X dollars now, or we can come up with a payment plan and you can pay me over a 6-month period. And typically 6 months is, in a normal world, that's what a lending institution will say, like, you got 6 months, and they'll agree to forbear in that period. So that is another tool that you can use. One thing to know about a statutory declaration is that lenders will rely on the truth of its contents. And if you say, you only have one property and it's your matrimonial home and it's owned with your wife, and then they learn that you have a cottage in Halliburton that you didn't claim and it had no mortgage on it, if they learn about that at some point after they've settled with you, they can unravel that settlement. They can go back and say, okay, we settled on the truth of the contents of that stat dec. It wasn't true, so we're coming to get all of our money. Okay, so that's one thing to know. So let's say you've tried to negotiate with your lenders, you've done everything you can do, and you're still like, okay, I'm still not able to meet my debts as they fall due. So that statement that I just said is when it means that an individual is bankrupt under the definition of the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act. So the definition is when a party is unable to meet their debts as they fall due. So then you can decide, okay, what am I going to do? Do I have an opportunity to go bankrupt, or can I make a consumer proposal? Now, a lot of people don't really understand the bankruptcy and insolvency process. So a large part of my practice is bankruptcy and insolvency. So I will work with either individuals or with corporations to determine what's their best steps. Like if they've chosen to go down the bankruptcy road, I can help them navigate that with a trustee in bankruptcy. So that's one thing that people don't realize is they'll call a lawyer and say, oh, I need to go bankrupt and da-da-da. So we actually don't do that. It is a bankruptcy trustee who does the actual helping somebody either go into bankruptcy or consumer proposal. So, but we will work with the trustees to navigate that. And oftentimes you won't need, if it's kind of like I own a house and I'm working and I just can't meet my debts, you don't need a lawyer for that. You just need a bankruptcy trustee. Okay, so so that's something, and we're happy to put somebody on to, because there's a lot of trustees out there that I would not use, and there's a lot out there that I would use. So people can feel free to call me and I will give them my referrals. So, and then the difference between a bankruptcy and a consumer proposal, there's stark differences. So in a consumer proposal, you basically, it's your opportunity to have to put forward a proposal to your creditors where you say, okay, here are all of my assets and liabilities. This is my ability to pay. I've worked with the trustee, and this is the proposal that we're putting forward, and the trustee basically is backing it. And so that could be over an 18-month period, for example, and they'll pay the creditors a pro rata portion of whatever debts are owing to each of those creditors. The good thing about a proposal, if it's accepted by the majority, and there's a ratio and there's a formula for how the vote is accepted. But if you can get your creditors on side, and oftentimes they are on side, if you can get them on side, then you just do the proposal, you make your payments, and you come out, and there's no bankruptcy. It doesn't affect your credit, and you're able to go off and get lending from another institution, and all is great with the world. Bankruptcy, on the other hand, is you either make an assignment in bankruptcy, or somebody petitions you into bankruptcy, and at that point everything is stayed. You basically, the trustee steps into the shoes of the debtor and makes all of your business decisions for you, and can sell your home, can, whatever the case may be, whatever assets you have, they will use those to satisfy the debts of the creditors. And again, that could be on a pro rata basis. So that's kind of like personal consumer proposal on bankruptcy. But let's say you have a corporation and you are deciding, maybe, what do I do with this company? If it's a franchise, do I give the key back to the franchisor and say, Bob's your uncle? Those are also questions that we can help with. So some things that you might be considering is whether you want to bankrupt the company, whether you want to negotiate with a franchisor to return the company, and what that will look like, because you still will have your debts and obligations to your creditors unless you can sell that business and sell the liabilities together with. So you can do an asset purchase, and or you can do a share purchase. So there's three ways. You can sell it outright, you can do a share purchase agreement, or you can do an asset purchase. So, and the thing with a share purchase agreement is, if you are able to do that, then the person who's taking over the shares also takes over the liabilities of the numbered company or whatever the company is. So that's kind of three different scenarios that you can look at. You can also look at whether you want to wind down the corporation and dissolve it. But of course, you have to make sure that CRA is paid. You can wind it down and kind of close it up. But oftentimes, and this is one thing that is very important for people to consider, when you sign, when you're opening your Fat Bastard Burrito and you have a lease and you have a small business loan, when you give your small business loan, there's a guarantee, a personal guarantee that you sign, that basically you're saying you're going to be responsible for 25% of the debts and liabilities of the corporation. And so too, when you sign a lease, most of the time landlords will want a personal guarantee, and sometimes your franchisor will want a personal guarantee. So you've got guarantees out all over the place saying that you're going to pay everybody back on a personal level. So those do not go away unless you're able to negotiate those. So if you're going to get rid of your company and walk away, you can say, well, the company doesn't have anything anyway. That's probably true. But if you have any equity in your home or assets that you own, then your personal guarantee will be collected upon, and they'll try to get all of the money that's due and owing to them. And in addition, you will have to pay the legal fees, so of the lenders on both of those. So, and one other thing that I want to mention, so if you are thinking about winding down or closing the company, oftentimes people are sole officers and directors. And if you owe any employment or HST, those are debts and liabilities of the officers and directors of the company. So you will personally be responsible for payment of those debts. So you have to make sure that those are paid before you do anything in terms of winding down the company, unless you want to go into a battle with CRA on a personal level. So basically, that's kind of touching on, you know, a very general overview of the steps. So, and kind of a part of my practice in a nutshell. So, yeah, so if there's any questions, that's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly, for that. And we have about 10 minutes left in the call, and we can start to take some questions from the members. If you have a question, I know Mano has one, so I'll ask Mano to just step up and ask his question. And if anybody else has a question, just put a question mark in the chat box so that I know that you're up next with your question. So Mano, are you still around actually? Yes, you are. If you can unmute yourself and just go ahead and ask your question. Okay, Mano's not there for now. We'll come back. Does anybody else have a question that they want to pose to any of our guest speakers?
Just wanted to add something there. Just to let everyone know, I do offer something called prompt loan. I'm working with a company that provides, it's pretty much as long as you have 80% loan to value and you have an existing property that you own, there's a loan that they do, and it's within 48 hours. It's anywhere between $40,000 to $75,000. So if that's something, you know, it's like an emergency. If you need something, just give me a call. My phone number is there, or, you know, everywhere. Just let me know.
Great, thank you. That's good to know, Sheila. I think we have a question from Azhar. Azhar, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question. Thank you.
My question to the lawyers Vithu and Kelly, that how important you know, during the purchase and sale, we noticed that some of the lawyers just dealing with the real estate issue, not litigation. So how important when a buyer or seller selecting a lawyer, it's important that they go with the complete package, a person who not only do the real estate, but he can also deal with the litigation, especially during COVID-19 situation.
Okay, I'll step in, and Vithu, you can respond if I miss anything. But in my opinion, and I am completely biased because I have to admit I have been in the legal field for 30 years, 17 as a lawyer, and all in that entire time I've done litigation. So I think it's extremely important because it is such a weapon to have in your back pocket, to know that your real estate lawyer who's working on a transaction, if I fire off a letter saying, okay, no problem, I'm going to go to court though, and this is not going to go well for you, they know I'm going to go to court. They know that that is a real, it's not just a threat, an empty threat. It is something that is going to happen if it doesn't go the way that I think it ought to go. So I think it's extremely important. And also, when there are issues like we have had, the correspondence that goes back and forth from real lawyers who do real estate and litigation is completely different from correspondence that would just be from a real estate lawyer. Everything I do is basically in contemplation of it going in front of a court one day. So, you know, everything is tactical. So there is a huge value in that. So you're basically getting underlying litigation, which is very expensive. You know, hourly rates for litigation fees are huge, but you're getting that underlying value in basically a $500, $600 real estate transaction. I mean, so to me, it's invaluable. People don't appreciate it enough, but you know, it's one of the selling features that real estate agents that refer to me use quite often when they're, you know, when people are saying, who do you think you should use? I know that that is a comment that is often put forward.
Yeah, I have to echo Kelly's point. My I'm not 30 years into the field. I'm 4, and my first 3 years I was only litigator. I didn't even get into the real estate side, transactional side, until much later. And to know that when we prepare everything, we prepare everything with the contemplation of it going bad. And we work backwards in a sense. So, you know, you're protected when it gets to the next phase, or we're doing certain things with the risk reward scenarios and advising your clients based on, if it goes to litigation, these are your options, these are your duties. You may have a duty to mitigate and certain things like that. So, you know, we will tell you, you know, make the decision based on the risk reward scenario that's going to happen later on. Tactical positioning, you know, small claims versus simplified procedure, superior court. There's different things you have to consider. So for people who could get a lawyer like Kelly or I for doing this for under $1,000 on a deal, well, we would have charged $250, $350, $450 an hour. Is and to plot it out like that, it's great. Not to shun anyone, but you know, it's very hard for you to I think do the best job for your client when you don't know one half of the entire equation, when you don't know the litigation component, because your correspondences are like basically, please do this, please can you do this for me, and it's very different when you know where it's going to get to. And then when the file comes from us from a transactional lawyer, it's like, oh man, sometimes, you know, the file's not preserved for litigation, or they've given up certain things, or they didn't intend. There's so many things. So I think it's very important to get a lawyer who knows both sides of the equation, and based on that, and you know, it's not going to be for much more than a normal real estate transactional lawyer.
I think that in these times that we're entering right now, that we're part of, this is going to be of utmost importance. And I thank both Kelly and Vithu for that. I've used Kelly, as you know, I mean, with regards to the certain situations in the past, to have that as a 2-in-1 type of service, knowing for the worst that could happen down the line, it truly is invaluable. So I'll speak from experience. Some of our clients, the answer is I will vouch 100,000,000% that that's the way it should be. And I thank you both for, but Kelly, honestly, you know, you and I have worked for years together. I thank you for your great service. And me too, we haven't yet, but certainly, like I said, I think it's just a question that these are things that I think are invaluable to our clients going forward.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Vidhu. I just want to mention to the group that I'm using multiple time Vidhu, and I feel so much blessed and confident the professionalism he brought it. And I totally agree with you, Kelly and Vidhu, that we always have to consider it. And thank you, Angelo, to mention this as well.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Mano, are you back to the land of the living, or?
Yeah, I think his question is, when is a good time to buy? Answer.
Yeah, well, I wanted him to be present so he can hear the answer, but
he's here.
Mano.
Sorry?
Mano, you there?
Oh, hey, Mano.
Hi there. Sorry about that. I had a clinical call.
That's okay. No worries.
Mano.
You had a question that you wanted to ask, so go ahead.
No, like a lot of people are postponing on all the buying, and I know there's a downgrade in the market right now, and people can't see the houses to buy. But when do you recommend is the best time for these people to go buy? Because everything is going to spike very fast. And when do you think people need to gain the benefit? For those who have low income and want to gain the best out of it?
Well, we're seeing a lot more buyers come to the plate. We, in the last week and a half, the max 2 weeks, we sold 7 properties. So buyers are out there. The question is, do you want to be in a market whereby there's inventory out there that is not moving, that you're able to negotiate a better price? Or we might much rather be in an upswing and that now you're in competition and you're paying a higher price. So if somebody's thinking of buying right now, I think this would be an opportunity. I gave you some stats a while back as far as the numbers that have dropped. I believe that the month of April, come the end of April, we're going to see numbers drop a bit more. It all depends as far as how the openings, the gradual openings of Toronto are going to be, people getting back to work. As you know, downtown office buildings, they're not opening up every floor. They're going to open up certain floors, and some corporate people are going to be working Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and some will Tuesdays, whatever. So if this goes on into June, end of June, July, you will see another drop in pricing. And then we'll see more of a tapered off. It's going to be supply and demand. So the greater the demand at that point in time that becomes, there'll be a lot more buyers waiting in the wings. So it's going to be more of a supply and demand. There's a lot of properties out there right now that are still not moving. I mean, we've been very fortunate as far as our pricing. The key element right now for anybody that's any agent, a listing agent, is pricing. Because listen, we're worried about banking and their approvals and how they're going to approve it. Some lenders are pulling back out at the very, very, very last second. So I would say if you're going to buy, I mean, just make sure you have all your ducks in order, your finances in order, and be ready. There's going to be a lot of condos that, even new condos that have sold. A lot of people may not be able to meet the third or fourth installment because of the 20% over the course of whatever. There's going to be opportunities galore. I mean, this is going to be a gold mine for people that have money. It's going to be a gold mine.
Yeah, if I could add to that, with Airbnb, being not protected, there's a lot, no one going to Airbnb. It's been a tremendous amounts of listings of that. I believe there's going to be a glut of that coming onto the market as well, and especially in the downtown market. And personally, even I have some clients who are who like to get into commercial opportunities, and they're basically waiting for another 3-4 months to go in and start swooping into certain businesses and offering them pennies on the dollar just to buy them out. I had a client last week who was able to negotiate with a very, very large franchise on a fast food establishment that, you know, the initial investment might be $1.5 million back then. Was able to bring him down to $900,000 with his team. So, you know, so there are opportunities that are coming for those who are going to be ready and who are looking for those opportunities. So, you know, it's coming.
It's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I think we're at 12:02 now in terms of time. Suresh, I guess we have, this takes us to the end of the hour that we have allotted.
I think we are good. Does anyone else have questions, or we can, otherwise we can end it?
I'm good.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for your insights today. Wonderful information, really helpful. And I wish more people could have joined in to take advantage of the resources we have that are just, so, you guys are so powerful, you know, and I feel, I mean, I've only joined about a month or 2 months ago, and just the difference that you've made in my life is just feeling more safe and secure, that I'm in such good hands, and I can't thank you guys enough. So thank you, and we'll try and end this call on a positive note, and everybody have an amazing day, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys. You guys were very informative.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you guys soon again.
Okay, bye-bye.
You folks.
Thank you, guys.